Hello, welcome to module number 3, Getting Value from IT. Well, before going into that, let's revisit last week. Module 2, we covered technical foundations, and so what were some of the key takeaways from Module 2? First off, we talked about the difference between IT infrastructure and applications, and so one of the implications of this is that firms need to have a current, well-designed, robust infrastructure to support business applications. So if you let your infrastructure get outdated, you may pay for it later in terms of not being able to drive or run certain business applications. And the notion that there's an underlying infrastructure that supports business applications certainly has implications for just the complexity of IT and its cost. So sometimes there's a naive view among managers that it's just why does this application cost so much? Well, it's because there's all this infrastructure that's needed to deploy it. We also talked about the concept of IT architecture, so how organizations go about organizing their technology platforms. And so one of the key problems we pointed out last week is that many companies have IT architectures that have been organized in silos, what I would refer to as local optimization. So we talked about the silo problem. We talked about what problems that creates for organizations, and really it helps to highlight the need for companies to have integrated IT systems, what I refer to as global integration. The benefits of that is when you have integrated systems as opposed to silos, you can leverage your data for insight. It helps to better coordinate activities, business processes. It makes you more responsive to customer needs. It also provides a platform for growth. Let's say you acquire a new business. It's easier to integrate them into your existing systems as opposed to having silos. We also talked about some different ways that companies seek to move from the silo environment to a globally integrated environment. Middleware, so that would be developing code between your existing legacy systems to allow them to talk to one another, essentially to translate data from one system to the next. There are, I think, some issues with that. That's not a good long-term solution. We talked about the data warehousing solution, which a lot of companies do. It allows you to keep your legacy systems. So Continental Airlines was an example we looked at. Done that. We also talked about ERP systems and what they do. There's your traditional ERP systems, and of course, in today's environment, more and more cloud-based software as a service ERP systems, which companies may want to consider. And then we also did talk about the structure of data, relational data, which is just a good background for you all to have if you don't already have. And then we wrapped it up with a discussion of some emerging technologies and what's the big data concept, what's driving that, how's that related to the Internet of Things. And so these are definitely some very current topics. Okay, so that was Module 2. This week in Module 3, Getting Value from IT. So we're moving from kind of the technical level, we're going back to the 50,000-foot level. We're going to talk more about management issues dealing with technology. So the question is, how do organizations get value from IT? Kind of at a macro level. I think there are really three essential things, and this is again at a macro level, but three things at a macro level I think companies need to do to ensure they're getting value from technology that if they don't do, they're going to run into problems. Number one, what we're going to talk about is strategic alignment. So it's the notion that you have to align IT and business strategy. They need to be in alignment. So we'll talk about that. And then as a part of that, companies also need to have an organizational transformation strategy to complement an IT strategy. So they need to make the necessary organizational changes for technology to have the desired effects. So that all falls under strategic alignment, which we'll talk about. So that's one thing. The second key thing that companies need to do to get value from IT is to have effective IT governance. And the way I will view IT governance in this course is think of IT governance as having a framework for decision making. So how do we go about making decisions? do we have decision-making processes and roles? Do we have steering committees? Those types of things. And so what you'll find in organizations that have poor IT governance, decision-making becomes haphazard. And, of course, you get into the silo problems because you've got all these different business units doing their own things, different functional areas, buying their own technologies off standard, and you end up with a big mess in the end. So IT governance is crucial to have to getting value from IT, to having effective information systems within organizations. And really the third thing we'll talk about within Module 3 is IT leadership. So getting value from IT requires people at the CIO level or IT executives who really have business savvy. We'll talk a lot about that, along with technical savvy. And so what is the role of today's CIO? What should it be as opposed to what it was 10, 20, 30 years ago? So again, to wrap it up, Module 3, one of my favorite modules, 3 things that are critical for companies to do to make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck for IT is technology has to be aligned with the organization. So strategic alignment. You have to have effective IT governance, and you have to have good, solid IT leadership, business savvy tech leaders. So enjoy the readings, and we'll talk more. Thank you.